Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bill. Today we are in the Ultimate Combat. We are looking at the spells for the Divine Spellcasters today. This is the continuation of the War Magic play list that I've been making, where we've been looking at different spells of different levels from different classes, from different books, and seeing what would be applicable in a medieval battle field. As a big game changer to the way a medieval battle would have played out. And we only check up to 6th level spells because any spell beyond 6th level is guaranteed to really affect a battlefield. At that point, a spellcaster is as effective as an army. Especially when you look at the common levels for the soldiers being 1 to 5 and 1 to 3 being the most common. So what page do I need to be on? 208. Okay. So we're doing divine spells. We're going to do 1st and 2nd level divine spells. I'll read the cleric spell list first. Going over the spells, we'll look up spells that pique my curiosity and read them, the full description of the spells. But as I think of interesting ways to use them, I'll make those comments to you guys. After we look at the cleric spell list, we'll look at the druid spell list. So without further ado, let's look at the level 1 cleric spells. Abundant Ammunition replaces non-magical ammunition every round. That sounds like a useful spell. Let's look that one up. Abundant Ammunition. Durations 1 minute per level. When cast on a container such as a quiver or a pouch that contains non-magical ammunition or shuriken, including masterwork ammunition or masterwork shuriken, at the start of each round, this spell replaces any ammunition taken from the container the round before. The ammunition taken from the container the round before vanishes if the casting of this spell you cast a spell that enhances projectiles such as a line weapon or greater magic weapon on the same container. All projectiles this spell conjures are affected by that spell. So it duplicates, with the combination of that, it duplicates the magical aspect of those items. That can be very useful if you put that as a one-use item on the quivers and all they had to do was say rub a rune and say a magic word to activate it, and say you put a decent level spellcaster's casting on it, something that would give them a duration of 5 minutes, your archers would have a great amount of ammo. In addition to that, you could put multiple runes on it. Each rune has to be rubbed and the word said, and they all have that one use effect. Say you limited it to 4 runes, they would still have 4 times the ammo of somebody without that magic backing them up. So that can be very useful. Air bubble creates a small pocket of air around your head or an object. If you're dealing with poisonous gases, I could see that being very useful. So imagine putting that on one-use items, scarves or an amulet that they wear, command word triggered, and then they get that pocket of air. Compel hostility. Compels opponents to attack you instead of your allies. That would be good for your like dwarven defenders, for your heavily armored or big target creatures, like if you had some ogres in your army. Putting that on them, so the enemy's probably going to attack the ogre anyways, but I mean putting it on the heavy armored guy to make the enemies go after him more than your rest of your army, then you can just, while they're distracted, attack them from the flanks. So that can be useful. Deadeye's Lore. Gain a +4 bonus on survival and move full speed while tracking. That one's not going to be that great. But if you combine that with like a ranger, where they get a bonus to survival, and they can move full speed while tracking, that'd be great. Because normally when you're tracking, you're moving half speed. So put that on, say, some magical goggles, or put them on some mundane goggles as a one-use item. When they activate, as long as they're wearing the goggles, they have that bonus for an hour would be what I would rule. And then the goggles disintegrate afterwards. Liberating Command. Target makes an escape artist check as an immediate action and gains a bonus on it. That can be good if you're dealing with people being tied up, or creatures that are using like animated ropes or chains. Moment of Greatness. Doubles a morale bonus. That can be very good too, especially since morale would affect your armies. That would be very good. So with Moment of Greatness, I'd put that on a banner, cast that on a drum or a horn, and when that's blown, that activates it. When the drum's beaten, it activates it. When they wave the flag a certain way, it activates it. Reinforce Armament. Temporarily mitigates the fragile quality in targeted weapon or armor. That one's not going to be as useful on the military, like grand scale. Sun Metal. Weapon touch bursts into flame. Let's read Sun Metal because that sounds very useful. The duration's 1 round per level, and it's a single weapon, so you would have to put this as like one-use items or pre-cast it onto a weapon to activate at a time later. The target weapon ignites into flame that does not hurt the weapon or the wielder, but damages those hit by the weapon. When the weapon's wielder hits with this weapon, it deals an additional 1d4 points of fire damage. This damage is not multiplied in case of a critical hit. This effect immediately ends if the weapon is submerged in water. This effect does not stack with flaming or flame-bursting weapon special effects, or any other effect that grants the weapon extra fire damage. It does not function on weapons with the Frost or Icy Burst weapon special ability, or any other effect that grants a weapon extra cold damage. So for a lesser effect of a flame weapon, it can be very useful because it's also a first level spell. So take that in consideration, put it on a few scabbards, precast that on a few ranged weapons that just require a command word to activate. Same thing with the scabbards, and give them a duration of a few minutes. And then you got 30 rounds, if it's 3 minutes, to use the item before the burning bonus damage that's given you dissipates. So I could see that being useful if you could put that on a bunch of items, even if it was one use. Second level cleric spells. Communal Ant Hall. As Ant Hall, but you may divide the duration among creatures touched. That can be very useful because now you can increase everybody's capability to carry stuff. Bestow weapon proficiency won't be that useful. It grants a creature proficiency in a single weapon for a short period of time. Effortless armor. Armor you wear no longer slows your speed. If you're dealing with medium armored and heavy armored individuals, or even just mounts that are armored as such, I would cast that on them, and then you would have the ability to move at your full speed instead of your modified speed from the armor. Let's look at the duration. Lasts 1 minute per level. So you'd need a way to make that last hours or to make it permanent. And I could see that being cast as a permanent, like being put onto your armor as a permanent effect for those that wish to stay moving fast. Communal Endure Element. It's as Endure Element, but you may divide the duration amongst creatures touched. So that can be useful because that can mitigate a bunch of damage that's being done on the battlefield. Say, you know, the enemy's going to fling a lot of fire or throw a lot of burning oil and whatnot. You can then divide the duration amongst a group of them. Maybe you put this on a stone to activate, and then the person in second or third row back starts touching everybody and putting this fire resistance on them. Instrument of Agony. Weapon exudes divine fury, granting a bonus on intimidate checks. Intimidating the army would always be nice. Not a high chance of it working, but it's always nice. Magic Siege Engine. Siege Engine gains +1 on targeting and damage rolls. That's going to be useful. Pilfering Hand. You may seize an object or manipulate it from afar. That's cool, but won't help you in a big military conflict. Now, your guys that are going in, your strike force, your players, if they're going to invade the enemy's stronghold or raid the camp before the battle, just try to weaken them or do some damage, this could be useful. Communal Protection from Chaos. You divide it amongst the group. Same thing with Protection from Evil, Protection from Good, Protection from Law. Communal Reinforced Armaments, which is just reducing the fragile quality off of the weapon or armor. That can be useful if you're in a siege effect where you've been under siege for a while and a lot of your stuff's damaged. Since it's communal and not individual, it would be very useful. Returning Weapon. Grants a weapon the returning special weapon quality. I'd put that on I'd put that on a sheath for use, for one-time uses, and just cast that on a weapon that I draw and throw. So maybe I have a throwing axe. I'd draw that, say the command word as I drew it, and then throw it, and now it's returning for the duration. So even if it's a minute, that's 10 rounds. You can keep throwing the same axe. I can see that being useful if you could give those sheaths to like your front row, even your second row back on your military. Now let's look at the druid spells. First level druid spells. Air Bubble, same thing as the clerics. Damp Powder, ruin ammunition loaded in the targeted firearm. That'd be useful for your strike force. If the enemies are using cannons, it'd be very useful as well. Deadeye's Lore, Liberating Command, Weaken Powder, let's look up Weaken Powder. It gives them a -2 and reduces the range, but I just need a little bit more information. A single loaded firearm within close range of the caster. They'd have to burn a turd to change out the weakened powder. Otherwise, they just get a -2 to their damage rolls and their range distance is halved. So that can be okay Now, if you could weaken a container of powder, that would be better, in my opinion. So maybe that would need to be a second level spell, but I don't understand why weaken powder is a single firearm and dampen powder, it targets the same thing, a single firearm. Probably make weaken powder, you could affect a container of powder or a firearm. So that horn that they load their firearms, I would say you could weaken that powder, which would give them a -2 penalty to damage rolls and half the range. Second level druid spells. Animal aspect, you gain some of the beneficial qualities of an animal. That won't be greatly useful unless you pick in good qualities that would work good in combat. But I can see that being very useful when not in a military conflict. I can see that also being useful as a strike force invading the enemy's base real quick before the night before a combat, just to hurt their chances. Communal ant hall. Certain grip. You gain a +4 competency bonus on acrobatics and climb checks. If you had to climb a cliffside to attack the enemy, I'd put this on a bunch of like hand wraps and make them one use. You say this command word before you begin climbing. Communal endure elements. Forest friend. Plants in the forest area become helpful instead of hindering you and your allies. So in other words, you would get to be able to move through the briars and stuff like that. The tree branches wouldn't be necessarily hitting you, so on and so forth, as you move through a forest. So that could be useful, especially travel-wise. Frostfall, the area is covered in a chilling frost. Wilderness soldiers, nearby plants aid you in combat. Let's look that one up. Area is a 30-foot radius. Duration is 1 round per level. You call on the plants nearby to aid you in combat. This spell is ineffective if no plants you can direct are within the area. You can spend a swift action or a standard action on each of your turns to direct one of the following attacks. The bonus would be equal to your attack bonus plus your wisdom modifier. On damage rolls due to this, and you get a bonus to damage rolls for every 3 caster levels. If you target trees, a tree makes a melee attack within a 10-foot reach of its trunk. Does 1d8 points plus wisdom modifier and damage. It can instead try to bull rush, drag, or reposition combat maneuver within the same reach, but the tree cannot move itself. Undergrowth or hedgerow. Acting as a medium creature, 1 square of undergrowth or hedgerow attempts to grapple combat maneuver against opponents within the adjacent square. Heavy undergrowth gains a +2 on its bonus. Undergrowth cannot move the grappler or pin a foe, but it can deal an amount of damage equal to a d4 plus your wisdom modifier by making successful grapple checks against the foe. If you fail to direct the undergrowth to maintain the grapple, it releases its opponent. The only problem is you're going to have to keep giving it commands. If you didn't have to give it commands, that could be very useful. I could see you staging a bunch of slingers with one-use sling stones that would do that to a bunch of plants, and then you could just litter the battlefield with these effects as the battle is beginning, and then that would disrupt their formations, which would in turn make it easier for you to handle them. So that's the last spell on the second level Druid spell list in the Ultimate Combat. So we're going to end this video here. The next one will be like divine spells of a 3rd and 4th level from the Ultimate Combat, and then 5th and 6th level will be its own video as well. Well, until we all game again, guys.